not fair. It's not fair. This is a phrase I hear often as a mother of 3 and a 7-year-old, and also as a teacher of teenagers. I hear it so often that I almost missed the underlying meaning of this phrase when it was said by the mother of the fallen soldier when asked to comment on the rescue of Sergeant Louis Burdon. I hope I'm saying that right. This week. This grieving mother was warranted in her pain, but her claim that it was not fair that her son came home in a wooden box, while Sergeant Bardog, a suspected deserter and dissenter, came home in a plane, really pained me deeply. Freely, she, and honestly we, say this phrase, "it's not fair," without thinking about what it implies. When my children say it, I try to redirect them to think about what it means. So, David, because you're thirsty, your thirst is of greater importance than your baby sister's, and it's not fair that she got to drink before you did. It's funny how verbally kicking the can down the road, looking at the logic behind the confession of this phrase, causes a refreshing perspective on our own selfishness, anger, and lack of compassion.
Well.
Matthew 11:43-45 says, "You have heard that it was said, 'You shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy.' But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven. For he causes the sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. Even as the nation rejoiced in the return of the only prisoner of war in the Afghanistan war, the media began to spin a web questioning the cost of Sergeant Bardog's release. 5 known Taliban terrorists, officers who were being held prisoner at Guantanamo Bay. The price of Louis' freedom was negotiating with terrorists, something that American propaganda consistently demeans as outright wrong, blasphemous to what we stand for in our American self-righteousness. Families of the 6 soldiers who died trying to rescue Sergeant Bardog have been reported by the Washington Times saying that their sons' deaths were in vain. Quote, "It's just disgraceful that Obama would trade 5 high-level Taliban officers for this guy who basically defected," said Bob Curtis, the Salt Lake Tribune reported. "Leave him there," Mr. Curtis added. That was his choice, his decision. That decision that Mr. Curtis is referencing is that Louis abandoned his post and as a result was picked up by the Taliban over 5 years ago. CBS News reports that in interviews, members of Louis' unit portrayed him as a naive, delusional person who thought he could help the Afghan people by leaving his army post. Louis was disillusioned, really, by the ideals that he expected to deliver. According to CBS News, Sergeant Bardog sent emails to his parents that he had lost faith in America's mission in Afghanistan, was ashamed to be an American, and was considering desertion. So let's follow through the logic of many commentators on the injustice of his rescue and the exchange of 5 Taliban officers. So because Sergeant Bardog questioned the ideals of America and its mission in Afghanistan, his life is not worth the cost of 5 detainees, negotiating with terrorists, or even the cost of organizing his retrieval. It's almost as though 5 years as a prisoner of war of the Taliban organization was not punishment enough for a moment of questioning frustration that some of his unit are calling naive idealism. Furthermore, in discussing the retrieval of Sergeant Bardog with Congress, the White House administration felt that such a negative response to saving this wayward young man, that when given the opportunity, they illegally made a decision to negotiate with terrorists, citing that the delay of a further back and forth with those in Congress who questioned the value of the life of the only prisoner of war in Afghanistan would have caused a close in this small window of opportunity. President Obama has defended his decision to act, even if it meant negotiating with terrorists in an uneven exchange of power, because America does not leave men and women in uniform behind.
That's right. Come on.
Now let's be clear. It's not my intention to challenge the validity of President Obama's decision. My intention is to question the response to his decision, especially the mantra of, "It's not fair," from grieving families and also from political interests. Following through with this logic is the justification of leaving a human being in the possession of people who we know to be terrorists because of our pride and our fear of the unknown possibilities from negotiating with known terrorists, especially because we're showing weakness in caring. Moreover, in the spin of justice, and that spin of is this just, the justice of this rescue, is our own selfish justification of leaving a disillusioned young man who had legitimate questions about legitimate policies and acted on them. Some may say as a coward, some may say as a hero. But he acted on them and ended up in the hands of known torturers. For he causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and he sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. Does this apply even in matters of state? How about matters of the home?
How about that?
Matters at work? Matters in our finances? The real question is, will we as patriotic Americans love even the unrighteous soldiers? Will you have compassion even on the unrighteous or wayward co-workers or bosses whose favorable criticisms are unfair? It is unfair. You are justified in this feeling, but not in your reaction.
Well.
We must fight, sometimes ourselves, to love the wayward, the naive, the incompetent, on whom God has caused his rain to fall. For we too find ourselves listed among the unrighteous. And isn't it grace that we also seek? God bless Sergeant McGrath as he returns to his grieving family. And God bless the families of all fallen soldiers. May his rain also ease their heartache.
Amen. Excellent.